distinguished guests, allow me a moment to recount some of the far-reaching changes that this approach has brought about. As I mentioned, it has evolved over the changing content and tone of development, dialogue around the world. It has actually set that on a different scale. Now we even have a human capabilities approach then brought in by the World Bank. It has measured development results using indices through defined indicators, such as long and healthy life, that is life expectancy at birth, education, knowledge, which is how many years a child spends in school or the expected years of schooling, and a decent standard of living where the gross national income per capita is measured. It has been a great advocacy tool for development actors to inform policy decision making at the global, continental, regional, and national levels. And to date, there have been also national human development reports are produced, and we have over 700 human development reports at the national level, in addition to some of the regional and sub-regional human development reports. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to now turn to some of the reflections on how human actions are strengthening the existence of the present and future generations and the Earth's systems, which is the theme of the Global Human Development Report. The Global Human Development Report examines human development in a new geologic era and focuses on how human development can be expanded to balance with the planet. It brings home the stark reality of how COVID, conflict, and climate change are impacting poverty and exacerbating existing inequalities. Inequality is actually at the very center of the 21st century fabric and of development dialogue. The future of development revolves around these two main constructs of inequality and sustainability. And this is something that we have to tackle with the utmost urgency. This 2020 report can be considered as a part of a trilogy by UNDP. In 2019, UNDP came out with the Global Human Development Report on inequality. The 2020 is focusing on the next frontier, and again is centered around inequality. And the 2021 report would take this analysis further as well. In this particular report, we are informed that in a relationship which spans over 300,000 years of human actions shaping the planet, instead of the planet shaping human action. And this has contributed to so many changes, some good, but others not so good. And some of these actions, the not so good ones, include our over-dependence on fossil fuels, not so relevant in Namibia, and on material consumption, which are driving climate change and biodiversity collapse. Ocean acidification, ocean pollution, air and water pollution, and land degradation. Some of these issues we can very closely identify with ourselves here in Namibia. Our world has witnessed and experienced various crises in a little over a decade, including the global financial crisis, the climate change crisis. We've seen these wildfires across Australia, the Brazilian continent, as well as in the US, and hurricanes over the Atlantic. And now, presently, what we are dealing with, the COVID-19 crisis, which has been unexpected and unprecedented. And these are these kind of shocks which take place to human development and progress to human development. In fact, they have all the hallmarks in terms of reversing some of the progress which has been made so far. And these crises thrive in a situation where inequalities persist, where inequalities are there. And this is where, this is what brings about further imbalances of power and opportunity in how human beings are accessing the various dimensions of education, health, and good standard of living. The report also highlights, and this is again something which is very frightening, I would say, that global wildlife has declined by almost 70% since 1970. It is therefore believed that we are at the beginning of a mass extinction event, which will be the 6th in the history of the planet and the first to be caused by human action. And that is the worrying part. These human actions have made scientists consider as to whether the planet has entered an entirely new geological area, which is what is referred to as the Anthropocene, or the age of humans. This means that we are actually the first people to live in an age that is being highly influenced by the choices that we make, and based on which the dominant risk to survival is ourselves. So it's basically humans pushing the limits, the planetary boundaries, and not realizing that the ultimate risk is to ourselves. So modifying our planet to fit our material desires is causing severe impacts. And this is becoming worse as the world faces problem of human overpopulation, overconsumption, increasing economic activities, overexploitation, pollution, and deforestation. So while it's not all grim and bleak, as this race we have achieved many incredible things, including significant improvements in health, education, and living standards of billions of people around the world. However, these achievements have come at a huge cost. The severe pressure on the Earth's system and driving our planet to the brink of collapse. No country has achieved very high human development status without in some way compromising the impact it has had on the planet. In fact, that is the analysis throughout the report, that even the countries with a very high human development dimension are the ones which are actually exerting a lot of the adverse impact on the environment. So this is where we need to see that we could be the first generation also, however, to correct this wrong as we move to the next frontier of human development. So the central message, as I am saying, is about redesigning a sustainable path to progress that considers the symbiotic relationship between humans and the Earth systems, the need to acknowledge that the carbon and material footprint of the privileged few is undermining the opportunities of the many people who have less or nothing at all. But transformation is possible, however, only if we address the inequalities which stand in our way. There is a need to redesign our pathways to progress. It is our choice to rethink, reform, and transform. And this is how we can actually do by reorienting our approach, moving from discrete, siloed problems to having a multidimensional, interconnected, and increasingly integrated pathway to these universal predicaments. We are seeing this wherever the world has come together. And I'm just going to give you an example. If it was tobacco control or the Convention on Tobacco, which was initiated by WHO, how the entire world came together and has made a success of that. Why can't this be replicated in other areas? I mean, this is just an example that if we want, we can actually move forward on this. But what do we have to do on this? As part of the solution which has been put forward in the report, we need to keep in mind 3 principles, that is of equity, of innovation, and stewardship, and which is what will become central to have a good life. And there are 3 building blocks. So we have to work with the nature, not against it. regenerate forests, protect wildlife, and provide a sustainable source of food for those who live there and generate the rain that provides the fresh water for those living far away. We need to improve incentives. The social norms is what we need to address. The world has spent over 300 billion US dollars in 2019 alone to subsidize dependence on fossil fuels, thus making it harder for clean energy to compete. Removing these subsidies could help to reduce the carbon emissions by more than a quarter. And this just, again, points to the need and the path that Africa has been taking in terms of asking the main polluting countries to be paying for it, because Africa's footprint is relatively small with regard to the carbon emissions. They need to change social norms, the way we live, we work. COVID has done that for us in some way. In fact, forced us to sort of change the way we live and work and interact. But how can we do it without being forced to do it? How can we be more proactive in doing it? And how can these shifts empower people? And then investment in new measures is important. Do we leverage technology and become the master of technology, or do we let technology master us? These are some of the issues that we need to be taking a serious look at, and a focus on the human development approach. That is the capabilities, the agencies, and the values as human beings. This can support our drive to the Anthropocene or the next frontier, so that we can exist in a symbiotic way with our planet. Therefore, addressing inequality and empowering people can offer a pathway towards such a coexistence. Let me conclude, Honorable Prime Minister, distinguished guests, by thanking you all once again for being here, and to pledge UNDP's support working within the UN system to support the development aspirations of the government and the people of Namibia. And thank you very much for being here.
As indicated, I'll be delivering the message on behalf of the Director General of the National Planning Commission. Thus, I'll just read the speech as being delivered to me. It is my distinct pleasure to deliver the remarks as we launch the 2019 Namibia National Human Development Report, captioned Addressing Inequalities and Disparities Towards a New Dignified Life for All Namibians. The topic of inequalities and disparities is very dear to my heart. At the National Planning Commission, this is one of the pivotal national objectives centered to our national endeavors, as it puts people at the core of national development. Indeed, the gist of this topic is even more relevant now, and even more so in future, as inequalities and disparities shape the socioeconomic development of people and will continue to do so. Admittedly, the past policies and practices regarding human development, be they positive or negative, had cumulative effects on our lives today. Similarly, our current policies and practices will garner a lasting impact on the future generations. Hence, the concept of human development, which is defined as a process of expanding people's freedom, capabilities, opportunities, and improving their well-being, resonates very well with Namibia's planning architecture, which is in line with regional and global development frameworks, such as Agenda 2030 and 2063 for the Sustainable Development Goals and African Union, respectively. May I hasten to point out that inequalities and disparities are a global phenomenon that exists across and within countries, across and within towns, villages, as well as across and within households. Therefore, we live in a world of extraordinary inequalities and opportunities. According to the 2019 Global Human Development Report, even the basic opportunity for life itself is disparately distributed. Whereas less than half of 1% of children born to a wealthy couple die before their first birthday, nearly 15% of all children born to a poor couple fail to reach that milestone. These children cannot be blamed for the circumstances in which they were born, yet their lives and their ability to contribute to the development of their nations are shaped by them. Similarly, the unequal distribution of power between the rich and the poor perpetuates status quo where the rich unduly maintain control over resources. Such situation exists in Namibia. The question begging for an answer is whether these inequalities and disparities are a fait accompli, or there is something humanity can do about them. Directors of ceremonies, Namibia as a small country in the global village had contribution towards human dignity by first and foremost erasing apartheid policies and practices from the surface of the Namibian soil, and she continues to fight against practices whenever they exist in the world. Moreover, Namibia has been in a steady path towards realizing its vision, as articulated in its long-term perspective plan, Vision 2030, albeit amidst gigantic challenges such as the rising unemployment, recurring droughts, and breakouts of diseases, of recent the breakout of the COVID-19 pandemic. The level of education in Namibia is high, with only 5% of women and 8% of men having no formal education. The increase in enrollment and school attainments by students at a very level of education is moving in the right direction. Furthermore, Namibia's health system has improved quite tremendously since independence, with Namibia among the top tier of African countries with respect to health expenditure. Notably, the distance to access health services has been shortened. The results from the combination of many factors, including interventions in the health sector, is that the life expectancy from birth currently stands at 64.9 years. Notwithstanding the still high level of income inequality in Namibia, at a Gini coefficient of 0.055%, there is a notable improvement in income distribution. The income of bottom earners is 30 times less than that of top earners. However, the lowest income earners have seen their shares of the population dropping from 78% in 2003 to 34% in 2015, thus increasing the share of the middle income categories. Undoubtedly, the achievement in education, health, income, and many other areas of human development, it's not a coincidental. It's a result of deliberate policies and effort by government and the people of Namibia and our development partners, including the valuable contribution by the private sector. In providing an answer to the question that I posed earlier, it suffices to say inequalities and disparities experienced by Africa and Namibia, and in particular are not unassailable, and therefore there is something humanity can do about them. Partnering for human development is the key to eradicating human suffering and degradation. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 Namibia National Human Development Report we are launching carries interesting messages by reading the report. I'm convinced that you may come with your own messages and conclusions, including what can be done regarding inequalities and disparities in our countries and the world at large. The first and foremost message is that inequalities and disparities within and among different groups of the population challenge human development and damage societies by weakening social cohesion and people's trust in governments, institutions, and each other. Inequality does not only stand affront to human dignity, it holds back progress for everyone. For brevity of time, some of the messages include: there is an unequal distribution of income within the Namibian population, despite the country's classification as an upper middle income economy. Disparities in access to land and housing pose a major challenge despite GRN efforts to address the issues of inequalities. Women remain as disadvantaged in income, health, and protection. Education disparities in Namibia are defined by the urban-rural divide, regional variations, and income and wealth differences, and hence quality of education still questionable. Despite progress observed in the health sector on overall life expectancy, the distance to the nearest health facilities remains a challenge. Inequality in Namibia exists in terms of income, wealth distribution, and available opportunities between men and women, urban and rural areas, and any groups within the population. Directors of ceremonies, ladies and gentlemen, going forward, I'm of the view that inequalities and disparities tormenting most of the Namibian populace are reversible, and therefore, policy does matter. It is clear from the Namibia National Human Development Report and the Global Human Development Report that inequalities and disparities are complex and therefore required solutions to address them are also complex, and there's no silver bullet solution. A right mix of innovative solution and partnership among all stakeholders, including the communities experiencing the brunt of inequalities, are important ingredients to overcome inequalities challenge. In closing, I'm optimistic that despite our current challenges, our generations, our youth, women and men will harness the capabilities, knowledge, and everything at their disposal for the betterment of humanity, and that all Namibians from all walks of life will experience life with dignity during their lifetime. The Namibia we want is Namibia with expanded people's freedom, long, healthy, and creative life, where people advance their aspirations. A Namibia where people have reason to value, as well as to engage actively in shaping development equitably and sustainably on the shared planet. I thank you. That's a message on behalf of the Director General. Thank you.
When I think of inequality, the things that come to mind are very simple things. Things like coming together, basic things that we tell children like sharing is caring, things like sharing resources, sharing knowledge, and storytelling. But since we're in Africa, when we tell stories, it's a very lively affair. And so for a few moments, I would like us all to just close our eyes and imagine that we are gathered around a great big bonfire, and it's time for storytelling. And as Africans love to do, we love to dance and we love to sing. So of course, we like to add a little bit of kapana spice. And so the spice can be many different things. It can be song, it can be dance, it can be the snapping of fingers. Please join me. It can be the stomping of feet. It can be the clapping of hands. So I'd like you to join me in co-creating the storytelling session by clapping when I clap, stomping your feet when I stomp my feet, and stopping when I stop, so that we can flow in a great big sense of equality. Okay. Hare hare kwadi, hare 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 kwadi, hare 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 kwadi, hare 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 kwadi, hare hare. Hear me, feel me, Kwadi. Don't be afraid to speak freely and express your freedom liberally. For the strength and bliss of 1,000 ancestors flows through your veins, so use their ancient wisdom to empower and unchain your brain as you set ablaze the system and stand firm in your power. The time is now. This is the hour, so shine bright, unite, and hare hare Kwadi, hare 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 Kwadi, hare hare. Kare kwadi, kare, 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 kare kwadi, kare, kare. For I speak words of truth to empower, to unleash the power that dwells within you, to open up your eyes and realize the lies fed to you by oppressors, colonizers, and apartheid fathers, to stand firm with your sisters and brothers, to go deeper, go harder, go further, go forth and raise your voice, rise up and give them no choice but to hear your lions roar, grow, ascend, and soar, far out beyond your wildest dreams, for you are the hope and the dream of the brave, emerging from slumber to claim your rights, equality, and freedom. So shine bright, unite, and hare hare kwadi, hare hare kare kare kwadi, kare kare hare kwadi, hare hare kare kare kwadi, kare kare. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Without further ado, I'll highlight some of the results in the 2019 Namibia National Development Report. Where do I point? Huh? I point there. It's working. That is my outline, and I will not waste time. That just follows the report. Maybe first of all, it's better to understand what is this human development. I think in the speeches it has been highlighted already. Human development is the expansion of people's freedoms to live long, healthy, and creative lives, to advance other goals that they have reason to value, and to engage actively in shaping development equitably and sustainably on a shared planet. That was in that report. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. When we look at Human Development Report, which is measured by using the Human Development Index, we can see the evolution of human development in Namibia from 1990 to 2018. We started around 0.58, which is not bad, but during the 2000s, we can see how we dropped in that measure, and this was much the reason of HIV pandemic, because Human Development Index is comprised of income, it's comprised of health, which is represented by life expectancy, and then education. Therefore, the combination of that is how Namibia has developed. We are around 0.64 now as a country. Right. Going forward, Namibia's Human Development Index over time, and comparing ourselves with other countries, if we compare ourselves with sub-Saharan Africa and also the world, we can see where Namibia is. Namibia is the dark blue. Does this thing point also? It doesn't. Oh, I think it does, but you can't see it on the screen. We can see Namibia, how he has developed over the years. And we can only say that we are below the world average, and we are also below South Africa. But we are higher than medium human development countries, but also higher than the sub-Saharan countries. This is how it is developed in our regions in Namibia. You can see that commerce is better than all other regions, followed by Rongo and Karas. Yes, I've explained what is Human Development Index. But now, there is a new measure, especially which came in the previous report of UNDP, which is the measure on adjusted human development index. That adjusted, it's adjusted in terms of inequality. When we take into consideration inequality, that human development level which I've shown you, it decreases. Here what we can see, we see that through those three components of human development index, the income component has decreased by 53.6% when we account the inequalities in Namibia. Education, it was on a certain level. And when we consider inequalities in Namibia, that human development index for education also reduces by 25%. Life expectancy reduces by 20%. Taking this into consideration, Namibia is the 13th country in the whole world in terms of greater loss when it comes to human development index due to inequality. This is the same story. This is the losses, but by regions. Here what we can see is that most of our regions loses too much when considering inequalities in our country. Karas loses less. That is the message on that slide. This is the story which is known. I will not even waste time on it. This is how income inequality in Namibia has evolved. By 1993, 1994, our Gini coefficient, which is the measure of inequality distribution in the country, it was at 0.7. But now, the official information which we have, it's 2015, 2016. There are estimates up to 2018, but the official, we are at 0.56 inequality in Namibia, which is still high in the world. Just complementing to what came from the speech of the Director General, it's that we have made some roads in distributing income in Namibia. If you look to the lowest earners, by 2003, 2004, that population, which were earning less than 50,000, they were about 80%. And that population has reduced in 2015, 2016 to around 34%. Where did that population go? It has moved into the upper categories of income. You can see the middle income categories, they have increased. The population has increased in those categories. This is our, if you like, our labor market in Namibia. Without really wasting time, other things we can read by ourselves. But what is very interesting here is to point out that in Namibia, the paid employees, those who are officially paid, because there are those who are working while they are not paid. They are doing some work. But the paid one, they are 65.2% of the total employed. Of those employed, only, it's 75.5% of them they earn a wage of less than 1,353. Why 1,353? That is our monthly or minimum wage in some of our sectors in Namibia. That brings us to say it's only 14% of the Namibian population who are earning higher than that amount. That is income. Our income in Namibia is really badly distributed. Using taking the relationship between Human Development Index, which we have heard earlier, and income, which is the distribution of income to the right hand of mine and to the horizontal Human Development Index, we can see how that relationship is in Namibia. I think the first message which one can see here is that most of our regions, they fall in the region of medium developed, I wanted to say countries, but it's regions, human developed regions. That is when the Human Development Index is between 0.5 and 0.7. Most of our regions falls there. Two regions, which is Irongo and Commerce, they are classified, or you can classify them as high developed regions. And since the majority are in the medium developed category, the rest of Namibia is classified as a medium human developed country. However, another point maybe to say here is that you see maybe really not a strong relationship, but that when human development is high, inequality is also high. But Omaheke is an outlier or an exceptional, where you have really high income or skewed income distribution with the relative human development. Why? This is the matter for investigation, but we can just assume that it's because of the mixture of people with really low income and those with higher income. The commercial farmers and the communal farmers, and mostly maybe the San people. So that is the reason for that. I don't want to dwell on this one. This just shows how land, which is also an asset to enable our freedoms and also our economic freedoms, has distributed in Namibia. Here we are just showing that about 48% of women in Namibia owns land through various forms of ownership, and 51% men owns land. Therefore, land is still skewed distributed. Gender-based inequality in Namibia, there are many indicators. I just chose some of the points, but one of the points is the gender pay gap, the gap between the pay of women in the country and their counterparts, the men. You can see that it has improved since 2012, and it was decreasing until 2018. But I have to put a caution on 2018. This is due to the change in the methodology in the labor force survey. Therefore, we can't really say by certain on that 23%. But I think the general message which one should get here is only that there has been a gap between men and between female and men when it regards to pay, but this has been declining over time. What drives gender-based inequality in Namibia? There can be many factors, but these are the most factors which has come to the fore. It's labor force participation of females. It's lower than that of male. Women join the labor force and they work few hours, and also they are underemployed in a full-time work. And sometimes, most of them also, they do work without pay. Women-headed households are most represented in poverty household than men. And these factors, they drive gender inequalities in Namibia. When one reads the 2019 Global Human Development Index, you find that these inequalities, they are classified into basic inequalities and enhanced inequalities. One of the enhanced inequalities is when people are represented in institution of decision making, and one of them is Parliament. We can see that we are doing very well, but maybe we have not reached the goal that that women are represented in our National Assembly. I think the figures, they talk for themselves. When it comes to education inequalities in Namibia, maybe we can have some few facts that we know that development human resource is critical to the growth and the poverty reduction strategy in our country, and that if a person is educated, he improves it contributes to our national economic growth and development, but also it alleviates poverty and improves the quality of life. We know that education is an important equalizer because it determines the level of income in which you can earn, it determines what occupation you can have, and so on and so forth. Now, as I've said again, there are many indicators in the report and somewhere else, but we just chose some few indicators just for illustration, that there are still inequalities when it regards to education levels in Namibia. We can see that the unemployment prevalence is high in areas or in those categories where they have got less education. For example, those who doesn't have any education, those who have primary education, those who have junior and secondary education up to technical vocation. The more you go to the universities, the unemployment is lower. Here, I would like even to ask that I think we should give these people some applause. And at the end, I will ask you, who are those ones? Maybe let us give them the applause. Those ones, they are doing very well than their counterparty. Maybe I was in a hurry. I will come to that slide. But here, here what is showing here is that it's how our children in Namibia leave school. I hope this will change, Honorable Minister, because of the change in the curriculum. But previously, we could see that the grade 10, they were leaving school earlier, and that is the above line than in any other grade. All other grade, they were around below 10%. But those in grade 10, it was even going up to 35%. As I'm saying, I believe this situation will change now because people will not live in grade 10 now. Yes, so they will continue. I think where, it's still coming again. No, it's here, where I wanted to clap, so you have clapped already. The names are already there. I think we should clap for them that when it comes to completion of school, years of completion of school, women are doing very well in Namibia than men. That is what we are seeing here. And it goes for every region. I don't see any region where males are doing better than females. Oh, Kavango. Therefore, Kavango, if you are, I think we are streaming this gathering. Kavango, if you are hearing me there, then we are not doing very much in that. And maybe to some extent also Zambezi. Yes. But however, everyone is doing very, very well. Females are doing very well. What propels education inequalities in Namibia? These are the factors: urban-rural divide, regional variations, and income differences. In the speech of the Director General, I think we have heard one issue which says that those children who are from wealth households, they are more likely to complete school, and they are more likely even to earn or to get better paying jobs, and so on and so on. Therefore, these factors, they affect inequalities in Namibia. 86% of women in Namibia are in the lowest wealth quintile, which is those category of low-paid people. Yeah, maybe that is the message which I can bring here. But despite the fact that we are doing very well in education, the quality of education still needs to be improved in Namibia. Coming to health, I think the positive message here is that Namibia, I think, is really dedicating its resources, especially from the government point of view, to fund the health sector, which has been throughout the years, I think, above 13%. It went even to 14.5%, but it dropped somewhere there in 2018 to that level. But it's still substantial. It is still substantial. However, it's lower than what we have committed ourselves in terms of a budgetary, that we should target 15% of government expenditure to health expenditure. But we're still among the top tier of African countries when it comes to health expenditure. This is how life expectancy in the SADC countries evolve, and we are doing very well. Maybe just to say, Namibia is still below the world average. However, we are doing very well when it comes to that. There are issues which need improvement, especially maternal mortality in Namibia, and this is how we have performed over the years. About 371 per 100,000 birth mortality in 2006. Now we are at 265. We are reducing, but I think that progress is slow. And that will filter into life expectancy, then it will filter into human development. And what factors, especially when it comes to infant mortality, there are factors which are driving really these inequalities. It's malnutrition, it's a distance to health facilities, and low vaccination. It differs from region to region. Now, the purpose or the heading of this report was that addressing the inequalities so that we should have a new dignified life for all Namibians. These are some of the conclusions which we are getting from the report, that inequalities, it is at the center of Namibian development efforts. Our Namibia Human Development Index stood at that level, which qualifies Namibia to be medium human development category. There are only 3 categories. There are low human developed countries, there are medium developed countries, and there are high developed countries. Namibia is in the medium developed category. The quality of well-being for women in our country has shown some stronger improvement, more than the average for sub-Saharan Africa. And even if you just take the Human Development Index for women, it puts them in the medium human development category. So we are doing very well in that one. The inequality adjusted Human Development Index, which I've said earlier, it costs Namibia very much when it comes to development. So it's something which we should address. If we could address inequalities in Namibia, we could raise our human development level. What is the report recommending? Among others, it's recommending that there is no single bullet which can solve these problems. Therefore, let us push the agenda of reducing all forms of inequalities. These which I've explained here, the inequalities in income, in health, in education, they are not the only inequalities in Namibia. It's not an exhaustive framework, but there are other inequalities. And hence, the report also recommends that instead of using only one measure of income inequality, the Gini coefficient which we have seen, maybe we should not be so much impressed that it's going down because it's not sufficient. It's not sufficient measure of human development in the country. Let us use multidimensional poverty index or deprivation. And using that one, using the DHS of 2013, we are having about 40% of Namibian population who are poor. If you use income measure, we are having only about 17% of households which are poor in Namibia. But if we use the other index, about 40% of Namibians are poor. You can see what that tells. Therefore, let us invest in human capabilities. Let us especially the distribution in income is as a result of the structure of our economy. We have high-paid industries in Namibia, but which pays only few. They pay high, but they employ few. But we have industries in Namibia, such as agriculture, which employs the majority, but it pays less. Therefore, if we could transform our economy, that could help us. Let us invest in agriculture, and let us also do other activities which are recommended there. So Namibia we want is Namibia with equality for all, long lives, educated nation, knowledge-based economy, full employment, and peaceful Namibia. I thank you.
It's my pleasure to officiate at the launch of the Global Human Development Report for 2020 and the Namibia National Human Development Report for 2019. The theme of the Namibian report is titled Addressing Inequality and Disparities Towards a New Dignified Life for All Namibians. I wish to express the appreciations of the Namibian government to the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, for partnering with us in completing the Human Development Report for Namibia for 2019. The two reports unpack varying dimensions of human development, such as inequalities, levels of development, a long and healthy life, being knowledgeable, and having a decent standard of living, as we have noted from the presentations that were made. These reports make recommendations for change, raise public awareness of ideas about human development, and promote resource mobilization in key areas of development. I am pleased to note, as indicated in the reports, the progress we have made in the areas of human development based on improvements in life expectancy at birth, mean years of schooling, and expected years of schooling, as well as gross national income per capita. Namibia's human development, represented by the Human Development Index, improved since 1990 from 0.58 to 0.64 in 2019, positioning Namibia at 130 position out of 189 countries. This progress is, however, made on the back of high inequalities in income distribution, as we have noted, which although it has decreased, still shows high skewedness, with the Gini coefficient standing at 0.5 as at 2015-2016 financial year. The inequities in income distribution fuel poverty and unemployment, with women and youth bearing the brunt of poverty and unemployment. And we noted there that although the women are doing well in terms of academic achievements, they are still paid less, and they are still participating less in the labor market. In September 2015, world leaders agreed on the 2030 agenda and adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, that would strategically shape the future, safeguard our planet, and promote sustainable and inclusive economic growth and development for all our citizens across the globe. Through the global framework, it is acknowledged that inequality is one of the major development challenges we are faced with in the 21st century, and that to eliminate poverty, unemployment, and build resilience of our people, we must address inequalities and exclusion. The National Economic Empowerment Bill, which our government is now busy finalizing through undertaking of the final round of consultations, is aimed to assist our country to overcome inequalities, promote resilience of our economy, promote high and sustainable economic growth, and eradicate unemployment and poverty. Eradicating poverty, unemployment, and inequalities is the cornerstone of our Vision 2030 and our national development plans, as well as our Harambee Prosperity Plan, of which Harambee Prosperity Plan 2 is about to be launched. In this regard, a number of interventions are being pursued by government, and they include broadening access to quality education and healthcare services, with free healthcare services provided by the state, and primary and secondary education given to all our young people, while financial assistance is provided to students from low-income families to access tertiary education. As a result, government allocates a substantial portion of the budget to education and health, a trend that has been maintained since independence, although we note that we fall short of the international commitments that we have made in terms of the proportion of the budget that goes to these sectors, especially the health sector. But in terms of education, but also in terms of other health-related interventions, such as the size of the expenditure, for example, of government on medical aid for public servants, that would increase the allocation to health sector. And some of the reforms that we are undertaking now include looking at that so that we can see how we can make better use of these resources by improving access to healthcare for all Namibians, instead of expending so much on only those that are employed in the public service. Implementation of a comprehensive social safety net program is another program that we have for dealing with poverty. And this program entails provision of social grants to the elderly, orphans, and vulnerable children, as well as to persons with disabilities. The elderly grants have more than doubled since 2015. There is also a program of preferences and tender set-asides for previously disadvantaged Namibians under the public procurement dispensation of government. And we have introduced an affirmative action law aimed at promoting equal opportunities in employment, which has opened up opportunities for employment for those who were excluded by previous apartheid policies, especially in the public sector, although we note that progress is rather limited in the private sector. The global report reveals startling statistics, as were cited by the presenters, about the adverse impacts of the actions of global communities on the environment and people's livelihoods. Climate change, and added to that, COVID-19 have eroded the socio-economic gains made around the world over the years, increasing inequality, and hence the need to tackle such situations so as to regain the progress lost and ensure a more sustainable and habitable planet. The Namibia National Human Development Report reveals the multidimensional nature of the inequalities, and we have also noted that from the presentation. The report reveals inequalities related to gender, access to education and health, ownership of assets such as land, ethnicity, and geographic location. These findings call for concerted efforts to address this situation. To this end, the government of the Republic of Namibia is committed to ensuring that our development approaches are supportive of efforts to protect our environment and to address all forms of inequalities at all levels of our society. Already, there are ongoing government programs aimed to deal with such issues. These include actions agreed to at the 2019 Land Conference, which seek to address access to land and housing. The implementation of these recommendations have started, and I recently released a report on the implementation of the resolutions of the Land Conference. The education and health sectors continue to receive largest share of government budget, and ongoing reforms will continue to improve the quality of services, both in the education sector and the health sector, and to ensure alignment of our educational programs to the needs of the labor markets so as to improve the employability of our graduates. We note, of course, that the higher the educational attainment, the lower the unemployment rate. But we have noted with concern that there are graduates who are unemployed, and that is for the most part because of the mismatch between what is produced by our educational institutions in terms of areas of training and also levels of qualification and what is required by the market. So it becomes important for us to address that misalignment. We are also now working on a revised policy on nutrition and food security and an action plan for that in order for us to address the issues of malnutrition that also perpetuate poverty amongst low-income families. We are also embarking on a robust program of environmental protection and management as well as disaster risk management. The environmental protection is, of course, as we know, a requirement under our constitution, and we are only one of a few countries around the world that do that. Addressing inequalities and sustainable development require that we do business not as usual, in that there is coordination and cooperation amongst all the stakeholders involved in development. That is why I'm happy to see many of our development partners being here, including Namibians who are not state actors. We need to pool our efforts together in order to optimize the impact that we make on the development situation. Government will continue with efforts to address these pressing challenges with unrelenting commitment. In this regard, government will follow a whole government approach to address all forms of inequalities across all sectors, And I must highlight here that in order to achieve that, we have ensured that the composition of our National Planning Commission bring together state actors and non-state actors, so that at the level of planning for development, we already bring on board the views of all those that have something to bring to the table to ensure that we achieve our development objectives as a country. We shall also harness the partnership with our partners in development, including the international development partners, to foster an inclusive, sustainable, and participatory development. I wish to call on all the stakeholders to examine the findings and recommendations of the report and mainstream them in their programs for immediate implementation. I want to close by thanking the UNDP and all our development partners for the support they continue to provide to Namibia in different areas of development. We look forward to further strengthening of our partnerships in the years ahead as we all work together to implement the key recommendations advanced by these two flagship reports. It's my pleasure to launch officially these two reports. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We are really thankful that you were able to spend the morning with us to contribute to the lunch in terms of promoting the awareness and the understanding and sharing the moment with us. I would like to extend a really warm thanks to each and every one of us. If I left someone behind, it was not deliberate, it's just an omission, but we thank all your presence. I would not do justice to mention each and every one by name or by title, but we are happy that you were able to spend this morning and to do the launch together with us. Now the launch is done. Let's go implement some of the recommendations and let's try not to leave anyone behind. I thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jamie Lee Diergaard, and I'm here today with fellow visual artists, and I would like them each to introduce themselves and talk about their paintings, which was inspired by today's launch. I'll start off with myself. This is my interpretation of racial unity. It's entitled Racial Unity. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Jodine Strauss. I'm a student at College of the Arts, and my topic was inequality in age. And this is my representation.
Hi, my name is Sindel Skuman. Okay, I represented inequality for women and women empowerment, how we should help one another. So, yeah.
Oh, afternoon, everyone. My name is Bendeka Tuapio. I'm representing for people with disability, and this is my piece. It's kind of abstract shape.
My name is David Indongo, and I'm a visual artist, and my piece speaks on economic equality. So what my piece speaks illustrates, this is just the buildings and also the urban area and the rural area. So basically just for equality on the nation. So urban area and the rural areas on the, yeah, so this is just a shack and all that, and illustration of the African people for us to have an equality in Africa.